It's on, Dub Nation. It's on like Donkey Kong.
Get him!
It's on. Game 1 tomorrow night. Cannot wait. Cannot wait.
I got goosebumps.
I love NBA playoff basketball. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. We'll get some playing games tonight. The field will be set. Whether it's the Pelicans or T-Wolves or the Heat and the Bulls. Warriors and Kings tomorrow night in the hottest first-round series right here in Northern California. For the first time ever, these two teams meet. And we say good morning to everybody out there getting off their graveyard shift. If you're at work, what is happening? If you're getting ready for work, what is happening? It's been a lot of talk between the fans, between radio hosts like myself and Chasky, with Kitty and D'Lo. Also, Matt George getting in on the action. Matt George covers the Kings for ABC 10 up in Sacramento. Does a great job covering the Kings. Locked On Kings podcast. I remember joining Matt last summer when they hired Mike Brown. I told Matt straight up, this is the guy. We're going to be pleased with Mike Brown. The Kings fan base will love him. Well, I think they love him. He won the Coach of the Year award yesterday. The Kings are the third seed in the Western Conference in the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. And trust me, Matt, as I say good morning to you, nobody is disrespecting the Sacramento Kings. We're not disrespecting you guys. We're just letting you know that there's levels to this. And it's going to be a long series for you, Matt. And I'm going to set the tone like that with you this morning. Good morning, man.
Well, before we get into that, I mean, there's nothing you can do to kill my vibe, because I get a message earlier this week saying that I'm finally getting to come on the morning roast with y'all. And then I find out when they put out the schedule on Twitter yesterday, I'm just the prelim fight for the Kenny Caraway heavyweight battle. That's all I am. I'm prelims.
No, you're not prelims. No, not at all.
I'm a warm up. I'm a warm up act. You guys beat me down, get all comfortable, get all ready to go, and then when the heavyweight champion of the world, Kenny Caraway, comes in, you'll both be ready to knock him out. I see how it is. That's all right. That's all right. I know my spot.
This is what I would say. You're too short opening up for NWA. There's nothing wrong with that. It's co-headliners.
All right. You know what? Now you're flattering me, calling me too short. Well, I'll take it.
And we're giving you some love because, you are cousins with Jeff Hilborn. And Hilborn's
that is crazy. I've known Hilborn for like 35 years.
So, obviously,
sorry.
Jeff Hilborn got the cool gene, and you being up in Sacramento are not so cool like Jeff Hilborn, right, Matt?
Well, okay, hold on now. We got to behave ourselves. We don't want a family dinner table to start getting turned over next time we see each other. But, y'all, we've been hearing what you're saying, and you know what we've been saying over here. Here's the reality, though. The reality of the situation is the Golden State Warriors are the favorites. They should be the favorites, the defending champions. But there's nothing the Golden State Warriors can do, and there's nothing that fans can do to kill the Sacramento Kings fandom vibe, and there's nothing that the Golden State Warriors can do to instill fear into the Sacramento Kings. Kings are playing with house money at this point. They're in a position that very few people expected them to be in, except for themselves. Mike Brown came in and expected this team to be here, got the players to believe, and started instilling championship tendencies from day one that, of course, he learned and adapted from his time working with Steve Kerr there over in Golden State. But there's nothing the Warriors can do to intimidate this group. There's nothing that Warrior fans can say to try and kill the Sacramento Kings vibes. And I think that's getting under the skin of Warrior fans a little bit, where they recognize, these Kings fans, they're going to keep jawing away because there's nothing we can say to stop them. Yeah. They've been waiting 17 years to talk this talk. They've been waiting 17 years to feel themselves. And even if they're swept, which no chance in hell that's going to happen, even if they're swept, come on. Kings fans, we've been waiting 17 years for this. We're not afraid of losing. We're not afraid of embarrassment on this stage. One, because we know this team ain't going to do it to us. And number two, because we earned every bit of right to be able to talk our talk and pump our chest out and have some fun.
No, you guys have. You really have. And I know there's a Kings playoff rally happening tonight at 5 o'clock up at the Golden One Center. So I expect a lot of Kings fans to be out there lighting up the beam. And you guys do deserve respect. You had one hell of a season. You really did. Offensively, you put up numbers that we haven't seen before in the regular season. Whether it's the best offense we've ever seen, that's another question. But you guys have. You guys played really well. And I thought the key stretch, Matt, for you guys was coming out of the All-Star break, where the Kings going to fade, where they're going to slip into West, where everybody else is getting healthy. And I thought that stretch coming out of the All-Star break, winning that double overtime game against the Clippers, sweeping the Oklahoma City Thunder in Oklahoma City, bouncing back from a tough loss to the Minnesota T-Wolves and beating the Clippers again, beating the Knicks. It's been one hell of a turnaround. So what advantage do the Kings have in this series over the Golden State Warriors?
I mean, the major advantage that they do have, I think, and I don't know if I'd call it necessarily advantage or if I'd call it just a contingency plan. I think the Sacramento Kings can defeat the Golden State Warriors at their own game. And what I mean by that is the Golden State Warriors. I mean, we're not talking about the Warriors being or ridiculously better defensively than the Sacramento Kings. It's very minor if you're looking at the numbers, like extremely minor. Now, the Kings and Warriors are both not good defensive teams by the metrics so far this season. So this is going to be an offensive series. And the reality is both the Golden State Warriors and Sacramento Kings can explode for points in a hurry at any given time, which means when one is exploding, the other one can keep pace. Like the example that I use is Golden State scores 55 points in the first quarter against the Portland Trail Blazers right at the end of the season. That same day, the Sacramento Kings scored 43 points in the first quarter against the Denver Nuggets. Granted, both teams were resting players. Doesn't matter. For the purpose of this, let's just say the Warriors explode for 55 in a quarter. Well, the Sacramento Kings could still have 43 and be down by 12. So you get that offensive explosion. The Kings are still very much in it. I could reverse it and say the exact same thing for the Warriors, except this Kings offense is historically the best that the NBA has ever seen. So they have to continue that. They have to carry that. That's why I say this Kings team is really in control of their destiny in these playoffs. I'm not saying the Warriors aren't going to try and stop the Sacramento Kings or put as much in front of them to disrupt them as they possibly can. Of course they will. But if the Sacramento Kings want to be successful in the playoffs, regardless of who they play, it was always going to be upon them to maintain the offense that they established for themselves during the regular season. If they're able to do that, they can score at a pace that maybe only the Golden State Warriors can keep up with. And even then, all the Kings have to do is create 1-2 points of separation to win some games in this series. So I do think the Sacramento Kings can beat the Golden State Warriors at their own game. They can survive those offensive explosion haymakers that the Warriors have been known for over the last 6+ years, and the Kings can throw some offensive haymakers themselves.
Matt, I don't want to. It's going to sound like I'm completely crapping on the regular season because I believe me, there was a time and a place where I thought the regular season was the end all be all. But like the metrics that you're citing regarding the defense. They missed Wiggins for 47 games. They didn't have GP2 until, maybe, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. They're playing Anthony Lamb, who you're not even going to see in this series unless there's a blowout or an injury or something like that, playing James Wiseman. Can't we agree that a lot of the defensive metrics that came throughout the year can kind of be thrown out the window?
I don't think completely thrown out the window. You make good points about players that weren't necessarily available. I also don't know if you can plug and play Andrew Wiggins right back into the lineup and expect the same production both defensively and offensively that you got before he went out, or especially that you got in last year's playoffs. Now, if they're able to do that, and hear me very clearly, if they're able to plug Andrew Wiggins back in and he starts playing in this series the way he played in last year's playoffs, the Kings might not have a chance. But I don't think that's what they're going to get. And there's nobody defensively on the Golden State Warriors that scares the Sacramento Kings or can stop the Sacramento Kings.
Draymond? Draymond? Draymond doesn't scare you even a little?
The Kings aren't afraid of any of the defense that they put together, and I'll explain to you why. Because the Kings' offense has made the best defenses in the Western Conference this year look like absolute baloney. If you're talking about the number one defense in the Western Conference is the Phoenix Suns. And in terms of points per game allowed, they were like around 111 points per game allowed or something like that.
But Matt, let me just cut you off. They lost Mikal Bridges, and they traded away all their depth. Like, to say that the Phoenix Suns are X when they're now Y, like that,
and
all the stuff from the regular season almost feels irrelevant considered how different that team is once they made that trade for Durant. So how can I take that data serious?
Well, because when the Sacramento Kings played the Phoenix Suns before that trade was made, they were still putting up almost 120 points per game, or a little over 120 points per game on the Phoenix Suns when they average around 111 points per game as a team. We're talking about the Sacramento Kings putting up numbers that would put the Phoenix Suns towards the bottom of the league in defensive metrics. So the Kings' offense is good enough to take the best, some of the best defenses in the league and make them play and look terrible, because that's just how potent the Kings' offense is. And y'all should understand this, because this is what the Warriors' offense been doing to the best defenses for years, because you can't stop their shooting. The Kings' roster is loaded with players that can get hot. Whether they need De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis to carry them, there are going to be times during the series where they can do that. But the Kings have had multiple games this season where they've had 3 or 4 20-plus scores. They've had the majority of their games that they've won, they've had between 5 to 7 players finishing in double figures. This roster is loaded with weapons and guys that can kill you, in addition to the top 2 guys in Fox and Sabonis, who are going to be drawing so much attention.
All right, Matt George, ABC 10
He's on fire.
in Sacramento, Locked On Kings podcast.
I'm loving it.
What makes De'Aaron Fox is a special player. He should be on one of the All-NBA teams. I'm not going to take that away from him.
He's a stud.
He's fast. I love the kid. I really do. I think he's a cold-blooded killer, and you see that in crunch time as well. What does De'Aaron Fox struggle with? What does he struggle with this season? I know it's hard to pick from, but what is one thing that concerns you about the Warriors having a lot of guard depth, especially defensively with GP2, Wiggins, Dante DiVincenzo, and then Jonathan Kuminga, who's 6'8"? What is Fox going to struggle with in the series, you think?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is sometimes his shot selection, and I say that based off of what started happening towards the end of the season. Now, De'Aaron was settling for a little more three-point shots than I liked towards the end of the season. Now, my theory for that is there's a couple theories. Number one is he kind of banged up his hamstring about 2/3 of the way through the season, continued to play on it, but I think he was taking it easy and not attacking the basket as aggressively as he was early on in the season to try and make sure he was okay and could make it for a postseason run, number one. Number two is, for someone who attacks the basket as aggressively as De'Aaron Fox does, he does not get a whistle that he deserves to get or should be getting, considering how banged up he gets around the rim.
Sounds like he has Steph Curry problems, Matt.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, referee. And look, kind of quick side note here, for the Warriors, for the Kings, for anybody, I think the league is gonna end up having a real referee issue by the end of this playoff.
It's already there. Matt,
100%.
I think I tweeted out something
We've
in December.
been on this
I said,
all year.
I've never seen the referees worse.
Horrific.
The fact that we know their names, they're going to flip a game and piss off a fan
gonna be
base
this
more than
weekend.
once in this postseason.
If whoever wins and is not going to talk much about the referees, whoever loses will be complaining about the officiating. I guarantee it. Just mark my words.
It has been horrific this season. And I said weeks ago, I was like, I think the NBA is going to have a real problem with this being put under the spotlight. And, and it's not so much the bad decision making. I mean, there's been terrible decision making, don't get me wrong, because I usually can give the human aspect of refereeing a little bit of grace. But there's also been moments this season where you've seen directly the refs impose themselves in a game and allow their kind of their personalities or their egos or something to affect the game, just like players do all the time. I understand that they're human, but at the same time, like, you can't have that happen on a playoff stage. But let me bring it back here a little bit. With De'Aaron Fox specifically, I mean, the true thing that I'm not necessarily worried about, I'm more curious about is, like, Fox is the clutch player of the year. Like, he's the runaway, absolutely, for clutch player of the year. But if these games are tied with like a minute 30 left, 2 minutes left, right? That's the Warriors' realm, right? That's where the Warriors have won championships. That's where the Warriors have won so many playoff games. That's the reason why the Warriors haven't lost a Western Conference playoff series since what, like 2014, 2015, or something like that.
Since Mark Jackson.
Even though the Sacramento Kings are comfortable in that position, and De'Aaron Fox has thrived in that position this season. Is he still going to be that guy on that big of a stage? I think he's more than capable of doing it. The reality is he's going to get to his spots, and he loves like that elbow mid-range jumper. He's so quick that he can get to it against anybody. Doesn't matter who the Warriors throw at him. The question is he making those shots to the same rate that he was making during the regular season? So that's what I'm most interested in paying attention to.
Yeah, Matt, you're on fire right now. I'm really actually loving it. We should have him on more often. But Matt, I'm looking at this like what the Warriors and any team likes to do in the playoffs is they try to find your weakness and then they continue to attack it. So I'm looking at your guys' defense down the stretch. What's the strength of the defense? How are they going to stay on the floor? Is Sabonis someone that they're going to be able to rely on in a high pick and roll situation? De'Aaron Fox with Curry? Like, I'm just looking defensively. Explain to me what the Kings can do to kind of slow down the Warriors in a tight game.
I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm being 100% real. A lot of it is a mixture of like defensive schemes, help defense, and defensive communication and weak side rotations, which is a major weakness of the Kings that they've worked on is help coming from the weak side, and then hope. Like if we're sorry, if we're being completely honest, a lot of it's going to be, hey, Steph gets a decent look that's kind of contested, hope he misses it. Clay got a decent look that's kind of contested, hope he misses it, or we sell out to make sure Steph and Clay are cut off on their drive. Now Andrew Wiggins is open in the corner, hope he misses it. Like, there's going to be elements of that. I'm not saying the entire Kings defense is built upon hope, but I mean, you'll also see, like, in the fourth quarter especially, that's where we've seen De'Aaron Fox specifically really like buckle down on the defensive end. When the Kings did beat the Warriors in in Sacramento earlier this season, you might remember De'Aaron Fox chasing Steph around the perimeter, Steph getting a good look at a corner three to kind of separate the game a little bit, and De'Aaron Fox blocking that shot. Kings would eventually go on to win.
Yeah, he had 11 in that fourth quarter, too, offensively. He was awesome.
Right, so I expect Fox to kind of take on that challenge, and Fox has spoken very openly this season about, hey, I'm guarding the best guard typically every single night, and that best guard ain't guarding me. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you, truthfully, defensively, scheme-wise, what the Sacramento Kings would throw at the Golden State Warriors, because schematically they haven't done anything to show that they can handle it consistently. However, the defensive metrics do say the Kings are a better defensive team in the fourth quarter. I know what you think, Joe, about regular season metrics.
No, it's
this
just
postseason.
yeah. It's all we have to go on. I get why. It's just for the Warriors, and I'm sure if I was a Kings fan, I would roll my eyes at disregard the regular season completely. But if there ever was a group of guys, a team, it's this team. Like the regular season means nothing to them. There's nothing that the Warriors can do in the regular season. They played horrible. The Kings were better in the regular season. I would cling to the data if I was trying to make a case for the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, it truly is all we have to go off of here in Sacramento, but also, like, a lot of this is based off the eye test of what I've seen all season. Granted, of course, I've watched way more Sacramento Kings basketball than I've watched Golden State Warriors basketball, right. But from what I've seen from the Sacramento Kings team, and this is where I really believe the Mike Brown, what Mike Brown has imposed in this group, this Kings team, with the exception of the final 3 games of the season, which we know the Kings were shutting guys down at that point, the Kings didn't lose 3 straight games since November. Like, they showed a consistent ability to be able to adapt, to be able to adjust, and we're not just talking game to game to stop losing streaks or anything like that. It's quarter to quarter. The Sacramento Kings became a really good third quarter team this season, which is something they were dreadful at under Luke Walton and other teams before. So the Kings can take some punches from the Warriors in the first half. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Let's say the Kings are vibing with the crowd a little bit with the energy on Saturday, and the Warriors come out and they're like, okay, we're comfortable here. We got to send a little bit of message. We're still the defending champs. Bam, like 14-2 run right out of the gate. All right. Sacramento's not going to panic. They can close that gap before the quarter is 3/4 of the way done. That's a lot of what Mike Brown has kind of imposed with this team. Plus, if you watch Kings basketball, you know it probably wouldn't get to a 14-2 run because Mike Brown will call a timeout if it's 5-0 and he's not happy with what he sees.
He did it last Friday, Matt. He did it last Friday. He called a timeout 91 seconds into the game, and this is without Fox Sabonis and Malik Monk and Red Velvet. And then in the second half, I think he called a timeout quicker than that. 91 seconds into the game, he called a timeout. And then in the second half, I think it was like 30 seconds, maybe 50 seconds. I don't know. That's a Popovich move right there with Mike Brown, and I expect him, as Fitz said yesterday, he's going to blitz Steph. We may see some janky defenses. Real quick here before we let you go, because you're on fire here. Matt
He's
George,
rising
Kings
my
podcast.
rankings.
Covers the Kings
Top
for
3
ABC 10
sack guy.
in Sacramento. How do you expect the young players on the Kings to handle the pressure in his first playoff run?
Keegan Murray.
Malik Monk doesn't have any playoff experience. Obviously, it's De'Aaron Fox's first run. Lyles, I don't know if Lyles made the playoffs with the Jazz or the Nuggets or if it was a bench piece. He may have been, but how do you expect some of the core guys on the Kings to handle the pressure in the playoffs?
Phenomenal question, and I'm not just gassing you up because you're my cousin's guy, Bonte. But this is something that we've been talking about and thinking about, and this has been a conversation well before we knew that the Kings were playing the Warriors, right? Like, Keegan Murray is not going to win Rookie of the Year. It's Paolo Banchero's award, and we completely understand. And other guys like Walker Kessler are going to finish above him, right? But there is no other rookie in the league that is doing what Keegan Murray is doing. A reliable starter,
team.
Of course. A really important piece, the best shooting rookie of all time. Like, there's so much why you want Keegan Murray on the floor. But teams are coming at him and have been coming at him all season long. Like, the biggest eye-opening game for me was Kings and Celtics in Boston, and Jaylen Brown was looking at Keegan Murray like he was dinner. And everybody knows, like, if the Warriors are going to target anybody on defense, granted they can target all 5 guys and probably feel pretty good, but Keegan is going to be the guy mainly that they're targeting. I actually asked Keegan about this at practice yesterday. I was like, Keegan, like, do you think you're going to be targeted? And he goes, man, I've been targeted all year. I just got to be ready to play and ready to get some stops. And Mike has talked very openly about it all season too, saying, look, we think he's ready for the challenge. We're preparing him. We're not treating him like a rookie. If he's got to handle it because we need him on the floor. If he can't handle it, he'll come and sit down next to me. So the challenge has been issued for not just Keegan, but for all these guys, right? Like, Kevin Huerter has been challenged on the defensive end, but all these guys have been challenged, especially the scorers, right? Like, hey, you're not just scorers. Like, grab rebounds, get assists. Like, Malik Monk has become arguably the second second best playmaker on this Kings team, and that is his role over like Davion Mitchell with that second unit. So I know you asked specifically about the young guys, but in total, this Kings team, what's most exciting to me about this series is no matter what happens, we're getting minimum 4 games of context here in Sacramento, right? We're going to go into next offseason, and we're going to know, okay, does this team, as they've been constructed, do they truly belong on that postseason stage? What needs to be added? Is Fox the guy? Is Sabonis the guy? All these questions. I go back and I think back to, like, at the beginning of the Weber era when the Kings got beat pretty good in the playoffs by the Utah Jazz, but they ended up winning one of those games when they first got in. And we left that series going, okay, the Kings belong here. And then that started their amazing runs in the early 2000s, right? Do the Kings fans feel the same way, even if the Warriors win in 6 or 7, which I think this series is going 6 or 7 games?
Yeah.
Even if it goes that deep, like, are we feeling that by the end of the series, man, the Kings belong here? I can't wait to get that contact.
I think we will find that out.
Yeah, what do you have? Final prediction here in the Bay Area. Matt George representing Sacramento. A lot of Kings fans are listening. You brought a lot of Kings fans over. I see our YouTube numbers are spiked with you on the airwaves. What do you got? You going Kings?
They're all here for Kenny Caraway, first and foremost, number one. Number two is, I'm going to roll with my guys. I do believe the Sacramento Kings can beat the Golden State Warriors at their own game and will surprise a lot of people. They've been doing it all season. I got Kings in 7, but again, this series is going 6 or 7 games. I have a hard time believing anybody's going to win in 4 or 5, and I know a lot has been made about the crowd and home court advantage and how these teams perform on the road versus at home. I'm all for the atmosphere of multiple fans of each team in each building. I think it adds to it. I cannot wait for tomorrow. Someone speed up the clock.
All right, Matt George, Kings is 7, and therefore family dinner has been ruined with Jeff Hilborn. So we'll see how it shakes out there. A Game 7 to Sacramento, that'll be iconic. And with the Game 7 win, you probably in the dynasty of the Golden State Warriors. So I know that's going to feel good for you if that happens. Matt, thanks so much, man. You're
Great
on fire,
stuff,
man.
Matt.
Good stuff, Matt.
Don't sit next to me at the dinner table.
No doubt about that.
Well, Bonte's eating crab fries there anyway with his shoes off.
Hey,
that's an insider joke.
Crab legs, doesn't matter. I'm getting it in. I am getting it in. By the way, had a good skirt steak yesterday. Diet's going well so far.
Where?
From Lenardi's.